With all your years of leadership experience, what advice would you give a leader wanting to succeed in this new norm?
Well, I think there's three things, especially in this new norm. The first part is have a vision of what you want to achieve, right? And it has to be simple. It really has to be simple, something that your team members can rally around. The second part is make sure you communicate that goal, that vision effectively, and make sure that you allow for some flexibility in that communication. As we know, over the last 3-4 months, things have been constantly changing. Every couple of days, every couple of weeks, something changes. So you have to make sure that you're communicating those changes, communicating the flexibility that your plan has. And then finally, probably the most important part, trust your feet, right? As a leader, make sure that you believe in what you're doing. Make sure that vision that you're setting forth, you believe in it yourself, right? Right or wrong, you've already built in the flexibility. Make sure that you believe it, so when you talk to your team members, when you talk to the community, that they can be on board as well.
2 postgraduate degrees, master's in management, a law degree, Cornell University, and I discovered that you paid your way through college by working from a young age, obviously a legal age, at casinos as a valet at the front desk. I want to know, what was the toughest job that you did when you were working at the casinos?
Ooh, that's a good one. I come from a family that is not of much wealth, and I made a promise to myself and to my parents that I would fund my own education. And I had the opportunity to, because I'm from Las Vegas, and was able to have all these wonderful opportunities in the casino resorts, right? So I started out in the health spa, front desk, bell desk, valet, concierge, did all these roles to pay for school. And it was actually, I would work graveyard, so work all evening at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and then go to school in the morning. So I think the toughest part was actually, one, I know all about blackout curtains, because you got to black out your room if you want to sleep. But it was actually, making sure that I got up in time to get to class. And then while I was in class, I had some friends who would, punch me in the arm, like, dude, like, wake up, right? But as far as the toughest positions, I think each one was enriching in its own way. I've made lifelong friends. You glean something from every experience, right? From being a bellman or a bell captain, you learn to interact with team members or your colleagues who came from different walks of life. Some had families, some were single, some had education, and some didn't have any education. How do you connect with all those people, right? From a health spa standpoint, how do you make sure that you're doing all of the detail work, right? It's not just about training individuals who come into the gym. It's making sure that everything's put away and put together, right? Front desk, that customer service element, right? There's customer service in everything. But in each experience, I made sure that I gleaned as much as I could from it. I really had to answer your question, it was just waking up in the morning. It was tough going from 8 to 10 hours on a shift, and then going to school for another 6 or 7.
And I love that about you, the fact that you have academics, qualifications, but that you've actually walked the walk of the team members that you are leading today. So when there's frustration with a valet attendant and something that's happened, you can relate to that, right?
Absolutely. I've been there. I've worked the late shifts. I've got incredible stories, which Maybe someday I'll write a book about, but
And how do you encourage your team members to, at this time, just think outside of the box? You know, I talk about you need to be the CRO right now, which is your Chief Reinvention Officer, because we've had to reinvent everything, right? So how would you encourage your team members, your leaders, to just think outside the box?
well, I think at first it starts with you. I think what becomes really important is leaders need to listen, right? I think the very first thing that a lot of people do is they go straight to talking, straight to philosophy and professing their own beliefs, right? I think a good leader has to listen to his people, right? Surround yourself with good people, but also make sure that their voices are heard, right? So part of what we build here, and in every department I've ever led, any company I've ever led, what's important to me is one, having an open door, right? Which a lot of people say that they do, but they need to really believe that they can come to you, tell you problems, tell you any perspective that they have, right? So that's the number one part. The second part of our culture here, or what I try to build, is then a free flow of information. Before the pandemic, we wanted to hear their opinions before this even started, right? So that let us be better prepared for this closure, for the pandemic. We're able to react a lot better because we've already started this culture. So the second part, make sure that there's that free flow of information. And then the third part is making sure that your culture has some type of development piece to it, right? When your team members and even your peers believe in those three things, there's going to be a rapid amount of information coming through. They're able to share their perspectives, their ideas, and that is what gets us through to the next steps.
Wonderful. And you hit the nail on the head, because the more I speak to GMs in today's world, the more they say that their leaders right under them, more than ever, don't just have to manage the people as much as they have to be now motivators and educators. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That is part of leadership in general. My belief there, when people ask me what I believe leadership is, it's really simple. It's bringing out the best in other people, right? And there's different ways to do it. It depends on your audience. It depends on who you're around, right? And leadership isn't just being the guy on top. You can actually lead at the peer level. You could lead actually even being a subordinate, right?
Yes.
Really, for me, right? It's about making sure that there's a 360 learning environment. There's a 360 perspective sharing, and that becomes ever so much important, especially in this day and age, right? But that is part of the culture that we try to build here, and we make sure that it's prevalent throughout the entire team member body.
So, what have you got in your office right now that inspires you every day?
Oh, you know what? See that right there?
Oh, yes,
Family.
I do. Family.
So,
What principles do you live by in regards with your family environment, your kids, etc.?
for my children, I keep it really simple. Be smart, be athletic, be kind. And when I say be smart, it doesn't mean that, focus on being, smart, born that way. It's about hard work, right? It's about studying, doing your homework. With the be athletic, it's about taking care of yourself. It's not about, appearance. It's about making sure that you're sound in body and sound in mind. And then finally, be kind. Make sure that you're showing empathy towards others and giving them the politeness that you would want yourself.
I love that. 3 principles that everybody could live by, and this would be a much better world, right? So, Stanford, what is your favorite quote?
Ooh, you know what? There's actually a speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave. It's called "The Man in the Arena," about making sure that you are the man who tried, who with blood, sweat, and tears, don't listen to the critics, right? Without risk, without trying, without trial, without tribulation, you can't succeed, right? So I would encourage everyone to look up Man in the Arena, Teddy Roosevelt.
I haven't read it. I'm certainly going to go after this and look it up. Stanford, what do you think is standing in the way of emerging leaders? What have you seen the key mistakes they are making as they walk up the ladder of success?
I think there's a couple different ways to look at this. The first is identifying the culture that you're in, right? You want to make sure you're in the right leadership culture, the right company culture. And what I mean by that is, and I'll use my own personal example, we try very hard to amplify and to make sure that we put people in the position to better everybody else around them. That's what leadership is. How do you make everybody around you better? Whether it's your supervisor, your peer, subordinate, you want to make sure that you're adding as much value as possible. And part of that is the balance between direction and delegation, right? So a lot of people will ask, what's your leadership style? And most people will have one answer, right? They'll say, yeah, I delegate, or I direct. You know, the answer really should be, it depends. It depends on who you're surrounded by, right? If, for example, if it's a beginner, you have to give more direction, right? If it's an expert, you probably delegate more, because if you started to give them too much information, too much instruction, you're going to micromanage them, right? So you got to find that delicate balance, right? And then also the complexity of the task. If it's something really, really hard to do, you'll have to give a little bit more direction. If it's something really simple, then a little bit more delegation. One analogy that a former professor of mine actually had mentioned, he's like, hey, how do you mess up Tiger Woods' golf swing, right? Yeah. And then, so he's like, you know what you do is you ask, do you breathe in or do you breathe out before you swing, right? Once they start thinking about the task that they do, it's not automatic anymore, right? That's how you mess up an expert. You make them think about what they're doing. So for us, it's about finding the right level of delegation and the right level of direction.
Well, thank you so much, Stanford. You have been a wealth of knowledge, and I loved, and I know the viewers are going to love these valuable insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show, Haiti. It was wonderful speaking with you today.